All right, guys. They always say beauty's on the inside, but what if people think that beauty's on the outside? Let's talk about it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's spoiler-filled discussion of The Substance, the newest film from director Coralie Fargeat. This is a film that has garnered a lot of praise for not only its body horror elements, but also its performances from Demi and Margaret Qualley. It's a movie that I love body horror films. I think they're some of the most creative. Cronenberg is a master at this. David Lynchian does some body horror, but it's a genre that can be very difficult to make really interesting or unique. John Carpenter also did it very, very well. But few can do it and do it masterfully. That's just kind of how it is when it comes to any good horror films in a lot of respects. But body horror is a very interesting way because it always has to do, and it always seems to be aimed at some part of us as a human, the human nature, the human mind, how we operate, how we become obsessed with things. The Fly, The Thing. These are all films that deal with some kind of obsession in a lot of respects. So a film like The Substance, or a movie like The Substance, comes along and garners the praise that it does, not only with its performances, but also with its filmmaking and so on and so forth. I'm automatically interested because I want to see people do interesting takes, similar to like when I talk about with the Twilight Zone, the Fifth Dimension podcast. You want to see people willing to take chances, willing to swing and make stuff that's very, very creative. Does it always work? No, but when it works pretty well. So Coralie Fargeat did a film called Revenge, which I have not seen, but I've heard is very, very good. This movie was bought, of course, by Mubi, which will be on this streaming service very, very soon. But I finally got to see this movie after, a couple weeks being out in theaters and stuff like that. And the basic premise, to not go into too deep because you probably have already heard by now, but the film or the movie basically at this point is about an aging actress who's named Elizabeth Sparkle, who of course is played by Demi Moore, who in essence has been pushed to the wayside by an exec played by Dennis Quaid. She wants to stay relevant, but if you know anything about the Hollywood system, about how Hollywood treats women, the older they get, the less people want to use them in anything. It's a really sad thing. But anyways, so this woman, this older aged woman, this actress, wants to find a way to stay young again. So what does she do? She learns about this thing after a crash of a car called The Substance. And The Substance basically allows, in body horror fashion, for her to gain a new, younger self. The way that happens is, of course, it comes out of her and through her back as her back separates. So basically, that's when we get Sue, who's played by Margaret Qualley. And in essence, what this movie is trying to do and what it's trying to say is when you're young, when you have a lot of star power, when you start garnering the presence of the people, your vanity starts to show. You want to keep those people, you want to save those people, and you want to be very, very famous. That's what this movie is trying to do. Now, in the process of everything, because there is a particular purpose that The Substance has in the form of how you have to follow it, when Margaret Qualley Sue doesn't follow that procedure, it starts to create a very demented situation for Demi Moore's Elizabeth Sparkle's character. The way she acts, the way she portrays herself, the look of her starts to really form into a demonic, horrifying creature in a lot of respects. And it leads to a point where it becomes so past the point of no return that it creates the ultimate demon, which is the ultimate vanity, which is the ultimate sin that unfortunately women go through when there's horror, when they become mentally abused by the Hollywood system and thrown out like trash. So in the end, it creates a demon-like character that is the epitome of unfortunality for a woman in Hollywood in a lot of respects. And therefore, The Substance is a precursor or an ultimate fate to what women eventually do to themselves, because what people in Hollywood or people in the world tell them that they should look like. So there you go. So that's kind of like the Substance in a nutshell, kind of the explanation of what it's trying to do. It's a movie that is saying a lot. Coralie Fargeat has a lot to say about Hollywood. Demi Moore, who I'm guessing maybe a producer on this film, has a lot to say about how she's been treated for the last 30 years of her life. Ever since she moved out of the brat pack of the 80s and 90s, and it's allowing her, who has done some work on herself when it comes to her face and stuff like that, to really get the point home of how Hollywood treats people like this when they start becoming not useful for them, and so on and so forth. And you see that in the realm of like who Dennis Quaid, politics aside, and what he's trying to do and how he acts and how Coralie Fargeat films him like up close and disgusting and all that stuff. So with that said, it's a movie that is trying to say a lot. Now, it has garnered a lot of praise. Once again, it garnered a lot of critical acclaim, possible Oscar nomination for Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, I think, as well. But the question, honestly and truthfully, remains, and the one that I was hoping for going into this movie was, is it any good? Is it worth your time and effort, especially if you're a body horror fan? And honestly, I'll say absolutely. This is my favorite film of the year. I said that about Blink Twice, but this is absolutely going to be very difficult unless something like The Brutalist or something like that nature comes out and just completely just floors me in the way this movie did. This movie is a unflinching, unwilling to not be nasty type of film. This is a huge indictment for how Hollywood treats women in Hollywood. It's exactly what it is. It's a movie about the sad nature of how people are thrown into a churn, thrown into a mixer, a blender, used up their abilities, and then thrown out like trash. The sad state of affairs that this movie portrays is how difficult it is to watch Demi Moore's character go down this rabbit hole that honestly that she doesn't even need to go down. The fact that she's willing to take this unknown chemical, which is a lot of what when they're doing to their face and stuff like that, this unknown chemical, this unknown idea, this premise, this situation, and willing to mess with their selves because their mind is so messed up, their vanity is so messed up, who they are is just not who they were. And when Margaret Qualley comes in the mix as Sue, watching how that vanity plays out, watching how difficult it is to see what she's doing, and it's really brutal, and it's a body horror film, so it's really graphic, and to watch how she just kind of uses the Demi Moore character to try to keep herself young, to try and keep herself in this body, because you had to switch yourself between the two characters every 7 days, or you really screw up the process of the substance, it's insane. It really is. Margaret Qualley is fantastic, but Demi Moore is on another level of just trying to portray the sense of how difficult it is to be who you are. And watching Dennis Quaid, his portrayal, which is absolutely fantastic, but watching this slimy exec who clearly will make you do anything he wants you to do, and to watch Margaret Qualley fall for that and how she portrays herself in the 80s style, aerobics videos that are very sexualized, how they operate. It's very much in the vein of like 16 or 15 Million Merits, the Black Mirror episode, where it's a very hyper-realized look into the Hollywood system and how you become famous and how it turns you up. And I really appreciate Coralie Fargeat for doing that, because it's a really interesting, not only look, but it has a very unique taste to it. And the fact that like it's all superficial on the outside, and how people in the cameras and how they operate, and using the very David Lynchian style with like the red hallway, and how Demi Moore sits in the very back of the hallway as the character played by Dennis Quaid, I think it's Harvey, I think his name, comes forward, and how small he makes her feel, and like the cookbook that he gives her is like a going away gift, is an insult. It all does a really nice job of showing that, but it also, once again, is going for a very shocking portrayal of that, and I really, really appreciate that. I thought that was really fascinating to watch that, using the body horror elements of like how the creature forms and how everything just kind of falls by the wayside, and the portrayal of that creature, especially at the end, when it doesn't matter what she does, it doesn't matter how hard she tries, it doesn't matter, the nature, like the fact that Margaret Qualley's teeth start falling out, her ear starts falling out, just the beauty starts falling away. And then you get to the very end of this movie, and it's just like this figured, disformed creature of like the inside of who this person is, and how they disfigured themselves, and the nature of like how that acts and how that portrays, it's so absolutely brutal and really fascinating. It's actually quite sad if you think about it, because you're watching a woman just like disfigure into madness because she's trying to keep her, appearances in check. She's trying to keep herself, there in the now, and it just doesn't work like that. It's really depressing. It really is. And once again, I think the fact that it's done in this nature, and it shows you the insides of how people really act. And like there's this like really Lynchian sequence where she's walking down the hallway and everybody's praising her, and it's just really just her mind just like wanting that back and not realizing that she doesn't have that anymore. And yeah, it's pretty crazy stuff. It's watching like how the men are and stuff like that. And I like there's a scene in this movie which I wish they would they try to do something with later on, but there's somebody that Elizabeth Sparkle runs into, which is this guy who in essence knew her from high school and still calls her very attractive, and she kind of takes that for granted because the people that she follows is not the people that really care about her. And then when she tries to go on a date with this guy who's baffled by the fact that he called her, she can't get herself to do it because she so wants to look like, Margaret Qualley's character, who's a very beautiful individual herself, that it takes a hold of her. And even when she becomes more disfigured after Margaret Qualley starts abusing the substances policies, she gets to a disfigured point of view. And she still wants to, she can't take herself to kill this woman, to terminate her, even after she's disfigured her, because she wants to, she wants to be beautiful. She wants to look like Margaret Qualley. She doesn't want to give up the ghost. And I can't tell you how many times I was just in shock and awe, because it's so in your face. It's so brutal. It's so unflinchingly willing to go there that it really becomes unsettling. It really does exactly what it needs to do. It is one of the most unique horror films, one of the most unique body horror films I've seen in quite a while, to be fairly honest. Even with David Cronenberg and, for the most part, John Carpenter, who hasn't done anything for a while. David Cronenberg's done films recently, but there's nothing like this film, nothing like this movie. I think the last time I found a good body horror film is Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor. And this one does it even harder. It's really crazy. I think this one really goes for it. It really is a classic in the sense of what it's trying to do. And the visual look of this movie, the unsettling nature of the creature effects, which are top notch and should definitely get Oscar nominations for. The performances of Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley and even Dennis Quaid. The directorial style, which feels very Lynchian, mixed with very much of David Cronenberg's style. The fact that this movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes and never feels boring is a testament to how good this movie really is. I'm going to be kind of shocked if it doesn't get any nominations, but if it doesn't, I won't be surprised, because this film is not for everybody. It's definitely not for the Hollywood system, because one thing it does and one thing it will not, apologize for is how screwed up the Hollywood system is. And once again, those creature effects in this movie are some of the best I've seen in quite a while. It's up there with like The Thing as creature effects, and like the American Werewolf in London is some of the most unsettling. Like the eyes, and then the Demi Moore's face in the back is like trying to breathe for air. It's pretty impressive stuff. So I give this movie wholeheartedly a recommendation. I think it's a fantastic body horror film, and I think it's going to be very difficult to find something else this year. Well, I'm saying that now, that will beat out this film as my favorite movie of this year so far. So there you go. That's my take on The Substance. It's in theaters now. We'll be in movie very, very soon for your streaming services pleasures. But yeah, there you go. I had to talk about this film because it's fantastic. So with that said, that's going to be my take on The Substance, which is once again now in theaters. Comments below. What is your take on this film? If you've seen it, did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you think it was too much? I agree, or not I agree, but I understand if you do. But otherwise, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell, top one's coming in next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.